Hey guys, it's Chi, and today I am going to be going into like the second video into my college series, and today's video is going to be all about my freshman and sophomore years of college. So freshman and sophomore years, especially my freshman year, was particularly difficult for me just because I was kind of getting used to the idea of college. For me, I just learned that I was really not prepared for college, and it was just really hard getting into it, and I actually had to take 3 classes instead of 4 just because 3 classes already took me a long time, especially since I had like lab components for some of my classes, so it took up a lot of my time, and I just felt like, you know, this is my first semester, I should really get into it, just like, you know, get into the idea of college. So I remember my sophomore year though, I took 4 classes, and it was exactly the same thing as freshman year, except I believe the classes during my sophomore year was actually a little bit more challenging than freshman year, because freshman year, like, your professors were a little bit more lenient, since they're like, okay, well, it's high school students going into college. So, but like sophomore year was just like bam, like all of your work all into like one package, and I didn't really have enough time for like any clubs or anything because I was just like spending a majority of it on school. And so I also really wasn't that social back then, just because it was really hard for me personally to really meet people, just because unless I went to like the professor's office hours. And so now that I've told you guys about my freshman and sophomore years, I'm just gonna tell you some of the things that I've learned during my freshman and sophomore year that I feel like I should really share with you guys, like some tips of advice for succeeding or getting through your freshman and sophomore years. One of the things that I've quickly noticed my freshman year was that your teachers are not called teachers anymore, they're actually called professors. I learned that on my first week of school, except unless they have like a doctorate degree, then you're usually supposed to call them doctor, like it usually makes them feel better if you call them doctors. So if they have like a PhD at the end of their name, then you should probably call them doctor. I remember one of my professors was telling me, like, usually for every single hour that you spend in class, you should spend about 6 hours out of class time to study for your class. And back then I was like I'm not gonna do that, like freshman year, like that is insane, like who does that? But I've learned that you should really do that, especially since I'm an engineering major. A lot of my classes during my freshman and sophomore years were kind of like designated to weed out all of the people that didn't have that work ethic behind them, and so all of the work just like really accumulates if you don't work on it. So I would highly recommend, especially if you're going to like freshman year, is to work on the assignments as soon as they are assigned. I would say a lot of college students usually take about 4, 5, or 6, or usually about like 18 units, and for me that was just a little bit too much and it didn't really work for me, so I took a little bit less classes so that I could focus on them. Okay, so in high school I took a few AP classes, and so I kind of know what college classes would be like. But in terms of math and science courses though, it's completely different, especially your freshman year, because I know a lot of your professors would be a little bit easier on, well, not exactly easier on you, but they would kind of, because they know that you're going through that like entire transition from like high school to college, so they would be a little bit more understanding. But a lot of your professors also treat you as an adult, so they don't treat you like a little kid, like they don't hold your hand or anything. They're like, okay, so if you want something from me, you have to come and ask me to it, like I'm not gonna just give it to you. So it's completely different from high school, where a lot of professors, like, you know, if you're running behind on work, some of them will probably approach you and say like, oh, like so and so, do you need help on this, or like, you know, I've noticed that you haven't turned in your homework. Like, professors, like, psh, they're like, whatever, like I don't care if you fail this class. Or some of them actually do care, but some of them are like, I don't care, like if you don't do your work, that's your responsibility. You know, my job is here just to teach you and make sure that you know the material. That's it. you could either show up to class or not, though I would highly recommend to show up in class, just because showing up in class, you really get to learn the material and you really get to keep up to date to some of the deadlines and also some of the materials that you're learning. So it's just a lot easier to learn the material, and you can't really learn it going to class. And so one of the things that I quickly found out is that it's really good idea to really start working on your homework as soon as possible. Like, don't delay it, don't procrastinate, because procrastinating is definitely not good at all, especially in college, because it's just like a lot of your work just keeps on piling and piling. High school, they were definitely so much lenient. I did not know that high school was so more lenient in terms of like deadlines and everything, because sometimes, like, I remember back in high school, I would usually, okay, I was one of those people where I would finish all of my homework and stuff on time, but sometimes some of my classmates, they probably wouldn't, like, they would come up with like some kind of like stupid excuse, like, oh, I didn't have time to do it, and then my teacher would just be like, well, I guess I'll just extend a deadline, let's do it tomorrow instead of today. But in college, that does not happen. Your professors are usually pretty strict on deadlines, and they will not, like, usually unless there's some kind of family emergency, but usually you don't get any extension on any deadlines. It's like, if it's due on this day, you better turn it in or you get a 0 for it. Go to your professor's office hours. So your professor usually has like about 1 to 2 hours of office hours that they have like about each week, so that students can come in and ask them questions about the homework or any of the class material if you don't understand any of the class material. And I would highly recommend those, just to go to those, just because it not only gives you like a way to really network with your professors, but it also helps you kind of meet other students. College is really a time where you get to really meet a lot of amazing people. Like, there's people from all around the world, like literally, especially in my university. We have, like, since we have so many people, like about 30 to 40,000 students there, there's a lot of people that you can meet there. And so don't close yourself up or anything. Like, be open to the idea of meeting people. Just getting involved in extracurriculars or club activities. Those are usually a really good way for you to meet people, because I remember personally, like, I wasn't really able to meet people during my freshman sophomore years, just because, you know, I was living at home and it just didn't really provide as much opportunities for me to meet people. So if you can join an extracurricular club or something, especially if it pertains to your major, then go for it. Especially from my personal experience, is that sometimes when you're going to a college, you don't really exactly know what you want to be just yet. Like, just take some classes, like especially if there's some classes that you feel like sounds interesting to you, or maybe looking at some of the hobbies that you, or some of the things that you did. Those are usually some pretty good starting points in terms of finding out what you're interested in. You know, also going to clubs, like joining clubs that sound interesting to you, and you might even be able to find your major from that. Don't be afraid to change your majors. Like, I know that it can be really scary to change your major, but it's better to, you know, go for a major that you're really interested in instead of staying with the major that you won't be liking. Like, so those are some of my tips and advice for being successful, like your freshman and sophomore years. Like, for me personally, those weren't my favorite years back in college, but I got through them successfully, and so I know that you guys can too. And so now my next video is going to be about my junior and current senior year, because those are actually going to be a lot better, just because I actually absolutely love my junior and senior years. They're pretty amazing. So I hope you guys stay tuned. It's going to be released next Sunday, so be on the lookout for that. And so at the end of this video, I'll be giving you guys a link to my blog, where I'm going to be giving you a little bit more detail about my freshman and sophomore years and some of the things, just because I didn't want to make this video like 30 minutes long, have it like really dragging on really long. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next Sunday. So bye. So excited to share with you guys my junior and senior years of college, just because these were actually like the best years in college.